All right. So, what did I miss in the first game?
DT crushed everyone.
As DT is known to do.
Yeah, that happens. Found some nice triple tiles on IO and just got a nice big lead off of that.
Well,
Okay, so now many copies is quiet, so now I can boost your volume. I have no idea. Just double your volume, that should be good enough, right?
probably. If not, fix it in post.
I don't have a setup that is capable of doing that.
Nor do I, but it's something people say, so I figured I'd just say it.
Yeah. Nice little hand wave.
Zoom and enhance.
This is DT again, isn't it? Sky. He's just running out all the old alternate names.
I'm glad DT's at least having a better start today, because for the first 4 games, he had a little bit of a rocky go there.
Yeah, definitely a bit of frustration in his games, feeling like he was getting targeted a bit, and maybe losing a game in there that he probably should have won, and that kind of maybe affected his performance.
I understand when everyone's targeting you. One time I was playing a practice game during the Asteroid Belt tournament, and I was a scientist, and everyone just kept targeting my steel triangle all the time with everything. So it was like, well, I will never get off tier 1.
Yeah, never a great feeling.
I think I got to tier 2 before I died, maybe tier 3. But you know, it was just like I lost so much early time that what you gonna do?
Yeah, and just like on top of that, it's like, I'm already so far behind. You really need to keep kicking me.
Yeah. I mean, it would be one thing if steel was super expensive and they kept slapping down on pirates because I had to go over a slight little ledge. It was like one unplaceable tile from my base, so.
Mm-hmm.
But because all the iron was in a crater. It was weird. But still.
Yeah. Not a feeling I miss. I'm happy to avoid FFAs.
True.
No,
1v1s and FFAs are a different beast.
Yeah, in 1v1s, if you're getting like beat down like that, it's most likely your own fault. So you kind of live with it. FFA sometimes just, I don't understand what people are doing.
Sometimes it's better to be in second so you don't get all the hate.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say sometimes 1v1s have the interesting quirk of, I'm going to do this thing that's bad for me but worse for you, but that works out.
Yeah, and then just everyone's really sad the whole time. 1v1s can definitely just bog down some horrible slog. But that's part of the fun of it. Good evening, Tufty Indigo. Well, hopefully Ryek stops having issues soon. I don't really know what could be the issue here, since we're not on next version. There are fewer things that are potentially my fault, which is always good. I can just, not worry about them.
Yeah.
Okay. Does look like Ryek's all set now.
Very good.
We should be able to get started. Would you like to do the intro for the second round?
All right. Intro. So, welcome everyone to game, I would say this is 6 now, of the Aquamarine League Regulars Division. Playing this game are Death Tacticus, Cat, That Scar, and Ryak. And I believe Cat has 3 wins so far, and Death Tacticus has 2.
That describes the situation exactly. And this map, we have a power colony with low starting power, though, but we do have doubles price silicon, and we might see some nomads on Mars.
And some double priced chems. There's really only one good nomad found that I'm seeing.
Yep. There's also a pretty good scavenger found available, although it's really far from water. And probably just looking at expansives, although apparently Ryek thinks Elite is more interesting. Elite might struggle a bit since Scar did take the good silicon.
And the silicon that Rack is getting, he's going to have to ship so far.
Yeah,
Well,
it's going to take a really long time for that to actually get there. Luckily, Scar is going to have to sell down a lot of the silicon to actually get to HQ2, so he might still be okay early on.
well, the other thing is he can definitely get teleportation. So, if that if fuel really becomes the issue, he's got a solution.
Yeah, definitely would be a solution. Would be a bit concerned about it with the high starting chem price, but maybe Bryak has a path into chemicals fairly early that he's looking at,
Ooh,
which could just be quite profitable.
Cat ninja'd the high water from that Scar.
Yeah, that's gonna hurt.
So maybe some Patent Lab slant drilling would be really useful there.
Definitely a potential play. Scar would probably be alright, still just taking like medium low low. Not really ideal, but since it's all adjacent, it's not such a big problem for him. But Cat is definitely going to be really happy being able to get this medium high eventually. Not going to have to worry about water. Yeah, just Cat and DT both with very strong carbon.
Ooh.
And
Oh, sorry. I saw the surplus coming in. That's good for that Scar because his upgrade material is about to get a lot cheaper.
yeah, not making a lot of money on anything, so that's just going to help him a lot. It would help him avoid getting stuck. It's the main moneymaker at the moment for everyone has been aluminum, but DT is producing an absolute truckload of it, so that price should not be maintained much longer, even though DT is probably looking to transition that into a bunch of wind before long.
And more water shenanigans around that Scar's base with DT claiming 1.
Yeah, also more water shenanigans around Ryak's base. Ryak doesn't care as much. He already has this medium and high water under his tiles, but DT making sure he has access to good water and kind of denying that to Ryak long term if he ever wanted a ton of water.
Some games it's just about the water. Because the life support market is the market.
Yeah, Chem's already on their way down thanks to Cat's production, so really the reactors are the natural response to that, just taking advantage of all the fuel consumption from there, and it is just the best market at the moment. Although there are also 2 Pleasure Dome claims coming down from Cat and DT, those should be nice supplemental income.
And that will also hurt Ryak there, as his elite Pleasure Dome will not be the first up just making bank.
Yeah, Ryak definitely falling behind a bit on HQs and on cash, struggling to keep up with these scavengers and without the extra boost from the elite Pleasure Dome, which should, in all fairness, be fairly cheap to put down with that electronic surplus. It'll be a while before he gets back into it. DT winning this iron auction for 24k. What do you think of that bid?
There are return of claims on market, so if it's not something good, he can get out of it. Also, sometimes the steel market gets a little ridiculous, so it's good to have an iron input.
Black market is open for business.
Yeah, definitely a fair point. With only one steel producer in the game, without being able to contest that market, that's a potential monopoly that is dangerous,
HQ has been upgraded.
although probably a bit less so in the hands of an elite who's behind.
The pleasure
But
dome
your
is
point about
completed.
return claims is definitely
Lord of the
important, and
coast
also
will
denying it to that Scar with his innate return claims was important to DT. Some fighting over power
Gadget lab
between
is
Cat
constructed.
and DT.
Let's get our science on.
Well, I guess is that Scar freezing Cat's power.
Well, that Scars is shut down at the moment, but it might be getting a target real soon. DT has a patent lab up and is going for virtual reality.
Definitely going to be strong with the elite available.
Nomadic HQ has been
Getting the
upgraded.
weaker of the two Pleasure Dome spots, but
Black market is
with
online.
virtual reality, I'm sure he won't be too bothered. Cat is the first to HQ5, though.
And Ryak's Pleasure Dome is about to come online.
Looks like 248 there. Once it actually gets a shipment of chemicals, which should be a nice little amount. Ryak probably does want to get a third farm down, although he doesn't have any claims for that. Just barely outproducing his life support costs at the moment, and food is such a lucrative market.
Ooh, that was an effective power freeze. Right on DT there, shutting down the farms. It just bounced all sorts of nice ways.
Yeah, that's pretty much as optimally as it could have moved. Cat is going to be very happy about that.
Well, here's a hacker array. If someone wants to make a play on a certain market, this could certainly help.
Could definitely make a big impact on things. Doesn't look like anyone has been pushing too hard on it for now. Okay, we're getting up there. So what markets are even available to be hacked? Electronics for sure.
If Rag had gotten it, he could go for the iron steel markets, try to do something with that, but they're not really doing anything great at the moment. And he needs more immediate bonuses.
And iron and steel in particular, he's like just breaking even on it with just high iron and 2 steel. So hacking either of those could be a bit dangerous for him, just it's not in a position to really take an advantage. Instead, we see that Scar winning the auction and hacking glass.
Hacking it up. That's not bad for a nomad because they don't upgrade with it, and since they have a bunch of silicon, they could easily go into it. But I don't see him producing any of it.
And not at the moment. Definitely a good choice, though. He is moving into 2 glass now, adjacent to his high aluminum tile. That is an interesting choice of placement. I think I would have preferred seeing them connected up to his base, but he can always do that on HQ5. He's changed from the glass shortage to an electronics surplus.
The black market is open for business.
That I like rather less. Just because your opponents are on HQ 4 and 5, they're going to be looking into moving into a lot of advanced buildings. This is just helping them as much or more than yourself.
And now we see the magnetic storms coming out over Ryak, that Scar's attempt to ship glass.
Yeah, I think he managed to stagger the shipments now, but he did lose a fair amount in that first exchange. Cat looking to push into DT stock right now isn't going to be able to finish the buy or even come particularly close.
Yeah, DT fairly well defended. has been running a patent lab for 2 nice patents, also running 2 optimization centers.
Right. Since this fight isn't going to get done, it does make me worry a bit about Cat. Just this money isn't being leveraged to kind of catch up in that long-term game. It's just kind of being tied up in the stock, and yeah, that's not going to pay off.
Sold.
Financial instruments for 12k. Everyone's debt is fairly under control this game.
Yeah. No huge money to be made there at this point. And DT is going for nanotech.
The black market is open for business.
Definitely a nice option. It is worth noting that his base is a gigantic clump of buildings, which hurts less without EMPs or slow down strikes available.
And the power surges are already 20k. So.
He might end up being just fine with that.
And he's got thinking machines, so.
Routine successful.
Yeah, it protects roughly half of his tiles. Off-worlds are not great yet, but they will likely be a factor, given that prices are reasonably under control,
The black market is
and
online.
everyone's probably going to defend themselves. So that is probably just going to be a perfectly fine setup. Meanwhile, Kat has moved into a second optimization center of her own. She is not looking at teleportation despite some of these remote claims. This triangle of reactors on the cliff, she has returned her double aluminum claims, which was my other concern. And so maybe she's fine.
Return of claims are just sometimes undervalued.
It's definitely easy to forget they exist since they're kind of a edge case for usefulness.
But they do allow you to invest more in early resources and then switch out of them if they don't, do well for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a hard balance to strike though, because it is a significant tempo loss for picking up Return of Claim instead of Goon Squad, something offensive, a claim.
Well, it's more of if you've already gotten ahead because you invested into getting a lot of early market stuff and then overgot into those markets, and then you just return a claim to get yourself back to a balance.
Yeah.
And the first off-world is now online.
Just a nice little plus 28k launch for the food, which DT is not producing food at the moment. Does he have food optimized at all? Slightly. He'll be fine going forward. There's a lot of food production down, but something to watch for sure. Although it definitely makes a lot of sense that a lot of players are in reactors over food, because that fuel price is high and rising. Or was rising. Is rising.
Now teleportation is looking better and better, especially Ryak.
Yes, for sure.
Your stock is being sold.
Ryak is instead looking at superconductor and yeah. Superconductor definitely will be useful if the power price persists until daytime, and I don't see any reason why it wouldn't.
Well, his power shutting down will certainly help it go back up. But so he will go further into debt. He's got extra cash, buy his own stock while it's cheap. But both DT and Cat smell blood in the water.
Yeah, and letting that D+1 debt tick go through will probably just be the end of him. Even when he manages to pay back a large chunk of the debt from power, he will just be really far behind, and someone's probably going to want to finish off the buy. That Scar, in the meantime, has 250k almost in resources just sitting around. Needs to be looking for some place to invest that. Maybe that is an off-world. Maybe that is something else. If it wasn't an off-world, would have liked to see some jumping in on Ryek stock.
Launch affirmative. What a payout.
The hacker array has also just been sitting idle for a while.
That's another thing, is a hacker array, like, I know that it requires, like, next level thought and planning. And I know sometimes I'm just not that good about it.
Yeah, oftentimes as the game goes on, I'll just get rid of my hacker array because I can't keep up with the demand of making sure I'm hacking the right things.
Here's what that Scar could do. If he were to sell everything, except he's now putting down a off-world, he could shift by Ryak, get 60% to each of their 20, and get 2 extra claims, which as a nomad going up against 2 scavengers, those 2 extra claims are nice.
Yeah, it would definitely be an interesting play. I think the thing that would hold me back from it is that both DT and Cat have significant amounts of money and 2 off-worlds up. So it's just a pretty big upfront investment, and then you're running behind on production for the rest of the game. They can just gang up on you, and you're in a bad spot from there.
True.
That said, if that Scar just builds 2 off-worlds now, he keeps up in production, but he's behind on stock. He doesn't have an easy entry point into any other player. He's also still just not in a great position.
Yep, if he doesn't have key patents, he's behind on optimizations. He's a nomad who got behind, and that's never a fun position to be in. The only thing that he's doing really well on is his debt rating, but neither Cat or Death Tacticus are in a really bad debt rating.
Right, and when Ryak takes this next debt tick, I definitely need to be paying attention to who is going to be the one to finish him off, because there is a lot of value in that buy.
That Scar is buying himself up, sensing that once Ryak goes, he wants to be defended. Not necessarily the worst.
That definitely just clears the way for DT to finish off Ryak, and that might just be enough to carry him through the rest of the game. We will see.
Because DT has also bought all his own stock, so once he buys out Ryak, he gets a full jump, and that'll just be ridiculous.
Looks like he's holding off for the moment, though. Might just try to buy out Cat completely. Ryak gets to live another day.
And that's a dangerous thing with an elite sitting there. Just leave an elite alone long enough and they come back.
Yeah. Optimizations so far aren't in super impactful markets. Power is really heavily optimized with superconductor. Means that Ryak is going to instantly kill the power price once these solar panels finish, and just not getting a ton of value out of those optimizations. Definitely the chemical optimizations make a lot of sense, and I guess it's just hard to find where else to put the optimizations. Markets have been awkward.
Well, at least when Ryak fully optimizes something, it gets him a claim, so...
Right, definitely once he started in, it made sense to finish it off. Just wonder if something else might have made more sense.
Chems aren't that expensive, so...
Yeah. He is running 2 optimization centers as well, so it's not a huge loss in time either. Cold Fusion for 20k definitely worries me for Ryak. He already has this insane power production potential, and 20k extra debt on top of what he had.
And especially if he really needed it, he could license it. He's an elite.
Right.
I don't think he...
price.
Yeah, because that basically was good for a few seconds, and I don't think got him much more. Now that power is dead, it's, Well, he's out of D debt.
Yeah,
He's all the way back up to B now.
he's well behind on cash, except not like he doesn't have the off-worlds up. I guess the big thing he's behind on, but he is in a reasonably healthy state. If he moves into something like the hacker array we mentioned earlier, to go into these iron and steel hacks now, that is a definite avenue for him to get back into things.
And there's an extra claim for everyone, which is not in Ryak's favor, because claims get less and less useful the more you get, because eventually you just kill all the on-world prices.
Means his extra claim advantage isn't as advantageous as it would have been otherwise. But either way, he definitely needs to be looking at doing something with that scar to slow down DT, who is just quite close to the buy on Cat.
Although that scar has more cash on hand, if he split the stock. I don't even know if that would work, because Death Tacticus has 2 of his own off-worlds.
Now, there's no move here I really like as a winning move for anyone, but gotta try something. If DT is just allowed to finish off the buy on Cat without either player going to a stock, it's really unlikely that they can do anything about it.
Now, one thing I see Ryak doing is optimizing iron, and that's generally a mistake, because you generally only have like 1 or 2 iron tiles. If he optimized his steel, that would end up being better, because then you get a lot more steel per iron use.
Definitely. So, right, he's making a maximum of 2 iron a second base, whereas steel, he's just making a lot more than that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess he's expanded into a second high iron.
And then if he... Yeah, and he sells a hacker array, then hack down the price of iron if you need to make that steel more valuable and kind of keep that rolling while you make each iron make more steel.
Yeah, I think ideally what you do is just keep hacking up steel and don't worry about the iron price too much.
Well, if you hack down iron, it makes it cheaper to build your 3rd off-world, because getting 3 off-worlds might be the kind of thing an elite needs to do to overcome that disadvantage there.
As Nahi points out in chat, there is no reason to choose between iron surpluses and steel shortages. Both can happen because elite. That is
Yes.
one detail I never remember. But
Yeah.
3rd off-world makes a lot of sense in terms of keeping up on income. I do wonder if he has the time for that to pay off with DT in his current position. On the other hand, he already has 2 off-worlds up. DT still hasn't finished the buy onto Cat. And Ryak has started pushing into DT stock a little bit. That scar's sitting on a truly massive amount of money, enough to potentially actually swing a buy.
If he shifts buys out Ryak, that should be a better sub than Cat.
Yes, for sure.
Especially since Ryak has invested a share into DT. That is just screaming, buy me.
That scar is only 55k away from that. And if DT keeps waiting on this buy until that scar is able to do that, it might just be enough to catch that scar up.
And this auction here.
Congratulations.
Yep, alright, that scar needs to make the buy on Ryak right now. He's still 5% away, but that's what he needs.
Yeah,
Because
definitely seems more realistic than buying out DT.
before DT can start buying his stock, because you get that huge stock price jump. And that'd make it a roughly even fight. Oh, but he's going into DT.
Yeah, I think this is the one move that is kind of guaranteed to lose.
Yeah, because it's double price stock. If you're fighting sub to sub, and you've got an elite sub versus someone who's got a scavenger sub, I think I know who wins that fight.
Right, and the other part to this is that even if Scar wanted to take down DT with Ryak, I think Ryak should be the one buying the stock. That Scar is more likely to get to the threshold he needs to finish the full last 5 shares. Whereas Ryak is a bit farther off, especially building that third off-world, which means DT is just free and clear to go through that Scar.
Your stock is being sold.
Yep. And the other thing is their stock price difference is $25, which you multiply that out, DT is saving more stock per stock purchase. Well, now he can buy Ryak, so he better do it now.
In progress.
At this point, it's just not going to do enough. DT's way too deep into that Scar's stock.
Shipment.
Yeah.
Make room for the profits.
Probably won't do enough, but I still think it's the right play with what you got going.
And if the rankings matter, then it would guarantee that tiebreaker over Ryak, so that is a nice little thing. I don't know if they do matter for anything.
They do some tie breaking as far as how long it takes you to win. So by extending out how long it takes someone else to win, you are in a better position. And now Ryak has a purchase amount on that Scar.
Look at all the money.
I don't know what that Scar, I think, is just paralyzed. He's like, I've got money and I don't know what to do. And he's fallen into the trap of, because I can't make a decision, you've chosen option C, which is the worst decision, to not do anything.
I mean, to some extent, if there is like a path where Ryak did buy out more of DT's stock, and then that Scar would have the money to finish off DT before DT could finish off that Scar, but that moment has passed. Long past at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still a good 300k away from buying out DT. Maybe more.
And as DT buys more stock, DT's stock price rises. And now he's decided to switch targets to Ryak, but that ain't gonna matter once he has 3 whole subs. And the cat sub is still making 2,600 a second for DT.
Yeah, once DT finishes his buy off, his stock price will be sitting somewhere around 90 something dollars. That Scar is not making 700k more this game.
Yeah. Yeah, the stock price difference is just too much there. It's now $45. And that Scar's money is going to be completely, drained just by getting half the amount needed, and then the subs are going to win for DT.
Affirmative. What a payout.
Cat sub ended up being pretty ridiculously good. $300 a second.
Oh yes.
Not as good as
per share.
Yeah.
Per shares, because subs also need times. Like the Ryak sub is going to be quickly catching up and surpassing. Because the Ryak sub's already at like 180 a share and has 3 off-worlds running, so the more off-worlds that the Ryak sub, well, has the maximum amount of off-worlds, but Still.
For the profits.
Right. In a world where that Scar followed the path you suggested, buying out Ryak as soon as he could after Cat got bought out.
Yeah, the Ryak sub also has 39 optimizations, and patent-wise has more patents than anyone else.
Off-world shipment launched.
Has a bunch of good patents. I mean, the Ryak sub is going to be amazing once time allows to equalization, but it's just not going to last that long.
Yeah. DT taking a nice quick lead along with Cat in this game, just strong scavenger founds.
Mhm.
But DT getting some key patents, getting some good black market off onto Cat,
Yeah,
just let him carry the momentum a bit better
yeah.
as Scar had his opportunities.
Yeah, DT was a bit ahead, first into the patent lab, immediately behind Cat and Optimization Center, just never allowed Cat to get ahead of him, and then just rode that to victory.
Mm-hmm. Black market wise, you can't really even complain as anyone. Everyone's kind of focusing up on DT. Made a lot of sense. He was just ahead most of the game.
Yep, and Off-Worlds were the name of this game, and DT made 1.25 million in Off-Worlds.
Yep, getting to that first off-world quite quickly with the thinking machines. This was a game where there were no real tools to go through goon squads, makes putting up and protecting off-worlds much easier. And especially with the thinking machines, you don't have to worry about the dynamites as much. So even though off-worlds weren't amazing when DT got them up, they were still plenty good enough to carry him through.
And by the time you're starting to put them up, the power surges had already been bought up enough, so there's only a few kinds of black market that actually, dynamites. That's all you got to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, congratulations to DT. So he and Cat are tied 3-3.
Definitely a close race at this point.
I still think Cat may still have the tiebreak advantage in terms of time, but we'll have to see how that is calculated out in the spreadsheet. I don't pretend to be an expert at that.
Yeah, I don't even know where the spreadsheet is, so you're more of an expert than I am, at least.
I know. Oh god, DT has it somewhere. I looked at it once upon a time.
Oh, it's all right. I think DT's handling it on his own, more or less, besides the whole forgetting to mark down the time for last game thing. Ideally, this doesn't come down to tiebreakers anyway.
Ideally,
less exciting.
But if he forgets, our streams will exist, and I always put archive to YouTube, so
easy enough to pick up and find.
Easy enough to pick up. In general, I clip things, so he can just use my clip length of the game, which may be off by like 10 seconds or so, but
Yeah.
Anyway.
So Xpus has gone and linked the spreadsheet in my chat. Right now, I don't see where tiebreakers are going to calculate. There they are. Okay. So 21.8 for Cat, 16.9 for DT. That's a significant edge in tiebreaker for DT.
But there's still 2 more games to play, which could totally change how this comes out, and that Scar Ryak would certainly like a win and not be shut out of the tournament.
For sure. I don't remember the FFA ranks from last game. I guess I can look that up while we're waiting. Tied for third with Cat. which would be 2 points. 3 points? I don't know how these work.
Oh.
It's fine.
The official rule is that when there's actually a tie, the casters break it. At least that's how we had to do it last weekend. Was casters decide. So who was tied?
So this game we're deciding between Cat and Ryak, right?
Yeah.
I do think Cat had more of a chance throughout more of the game than Ryak did.
Yeah. Cat was taken out as a threat. Ryak was allowed to come back by the grace of DT. So I agree with Cat for the tie break here.
Mm-hmm.
Although when it does come to caster tie breaks, sometimes if someone does a very interesting strategy and does something bold, I give it to them for trying something new and interesting.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. You should do the intro.
All right. And welcome to Game 7 of the Aquamarine League regular division. We now have 3 Des Tacticus wins and 3 Cat wins, with Des Tacticus with a slight lead on the tiebreak. And here we are on IO.
With a power colony and a double power price.
Sounds powerful. This could be... There's some nice mixed tiles right near the colony with some caves adjacent, so you could get a lot of... If you have that cave right by the colony, you could get very high aluminum with irons by it. Could be fun.
Yeah, you're still reasonably close to the carbon and the ice there. Definite option. Ryak opting for this scientific near basalt and ice.
Yeah, or oxygen and ice, and also right near a geotherm, so could be nice. Cat taking a little bit of far carbon scavenger, but I'm not really upset about that because there are no magnetic storms, no pirates, and no underground nukes, so that all seems good to me.
Right. Gonna get really good aluminum coming in to make up for that too.
The black market is online.
A nice expansive from DT. When in doubt, expansive.
A scavenger HQ has been up an expansive
Similar
Okay.
starts for DT and Scar, just high iron, double steel,
Okay.
high aluminum.
The one problem I have with DT, he claimed the very high aluminum tile and not the cave tile right next door.
Yeah, that's probably just inferior.
Yeah.
There's some argument where you don't want to be shipping in that extra iron if you don't think you'll need it. Don't want to pay the extra fuel cost, but I don't think I buy that in this situation.
No, especially since he put another claim on a low iron tile. He could have had that claim for something else, especially early. That is very valuable.
Well, in any case, Cat is going to be the first into a significant amount of power. 2 nuclear plants coming down. Ryak does have the 1. But yeah, this was always going to be the name of this game.
And superconductor and perpetual motion exists, so maybe Ryak will also seek to leverage his scientist advantage and get some nice patents there to do that. We've got that Scar. He's going to be running 2 geotherms, one adjacent to his base, one not far.
The market is open for business.
That's rather dangerous with dynamites and EMPs on the market.
Okay, so Cat is moving into a patent lab now on HQ3. She still does not have her power gooned. No goons have been bought this game, so the nuclear plants are just an open target. There are players with cooldowns up. but no one seems to be taking advantage of that.
Oops. It looks like DT has bought a power free, and there goes a nuclear plant.
It feels kind of backwards, the EMP landing on the patent lab and the dynamite landing on nuclear plant, but it's fine. It's two different players. You can't really coordinate that well.
Also, based on if people want some early patents, you want to slow some stuff down.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, in spite of the double black market landing just now, Cat has managed to just take a nice big lead here. 1 HQ level up and a lot of cash off of this power.
And also in fuel is good. A lot of carbon in there.
Mm-hmm. She's setting herself up really well for a quick space elevator or two with this heavy aluminum production as well.
And space elevators, food is the launch at 35k right now. So, Ryak hopefully will go into a patent lab to at least get something. Perpetual motion, geothermal borehole, superconductor.
Maybe even liquid batteries.
Oh yeah, that is very solid. There are lots of good patents here.
Yep, as always on IO. Cat's carbon gets frozen. Cat does not have a stockpile of carbon, so this is definitely going to slow her down quite a bit. Pretty much everything she has is off at the moment. And we'll get to see what other players are doing to try to catch back up, take advantage of this lull.
Well, it's not much of a lull because now they've got Cat with a pleasure dome. And with two expansives in play, that's not going to be a bad pleasure dome.
Yep. DT is getting his own pleasure dome up as well to contest that, but it is still a reasonably solid pleasure dome. And compared to all the nothing that is allowed to happen at Cat's base, I'm sure she does not mind.
Okay. And Cat has now claimed one of the double tiles to have a little bit of iron coming in. Again, hold down the Z key, people. It will show you caves.
That is actually going to be an optimization center, which makes a lot of sense. Start trying to do things to consolidate her lead while she can.
She might want to invest in a goon squad or two. If you are going to be the target of that much hate.
Alright, at this point, there doesn't seem to be like a major benefit for Cat to be targeting anyone else aggressively. Just throwing down a bunch of defensive items would just help a lot.
Especially on the patent lab.
But maybe that's not quite true with DT kind of catching up to HQ4.
But still, a key building like the patent lab, she has invested a lot into it and has gotten nothing out of it. So, just putting a goon squad there to just let it do its work.
For sure. Although, I mean, the patent she's gone for, she's queued up Superconductor first, Thinking Machines second. Thinking Machines will be important eventually this game. I'm not sure Superconductor will be too soon. So, in some sense, it's not been a big loss that the patents have been delayed for so long. They weren't going to benefit her immediately. Of course, she would want to get them and get out of this building. But yeah.
Well, what happened with her, she had that all queued up when her nuclear plants were coming online. And so it was all queued up there and never rearranged when power died.
Yeah. And yeah, her nuclear plants have just been sitting there off for an awfully long time now.
And they have been manually turned off, so even now that they're profitable again, they have not been turned back on.
Right. It makes me wonder if there could have been some transition out of them into something else. It was difficult with the carbon frozen, especially with all the carbon getting sunk into the ion collectors. But it would have been interesting to see. And especially now after Superconductor, at the very least, you don't need all three nuclear plants to stay. you probably aren't ever really going to run more than 2. It looks like she's going for a geotherm, maybe even a borehole play off of that. Even less reason to keep these nuclear plants up.
And if you still want a little bit of power, toss them into water processors, which are now getting to be very nice. You'll get a little bit of power.
Open for business.
One thing I'm mildly confused and concerned by is just there hasn't been a move to go for liquid batteries. Cat is on just 2 oxygen tiles down here. That's not going to be... Okay. Yeah, that's not going to be enough.
Cat's optimization center is not running. Or 2 optimization centers are not running.
Yeah. And at this point, it might be a while before they get running again with all the pressure DT's putting on her.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
She will be able to defend herself, but it's not a comfortable position to be in.
Nope. That's part of the dangers in an FFA of getting too much of a lead, people noticing, people taking you down, and the second place player just gets to come out ahead.
Yeah, people do kind of get stuck on their targets, not switching soon enough to the next threat. Speaking of getting stuck on players and not paying attention to the others, that's Scar. Got himself a nice little base here at HQ4. Has a patent lab up. Has picked up financial instruments. He does seem to like that patent quite a bit. Also looking at virtual reality now. Going to move into a pleasure dome of his own, which will be a solid building, but not spectacular at this point with 3 pleasure domes down.
DT is trying to make an early buy here and forcing people to secure themselves.
The black market is open for business.
Yeah, doesn't look like this one's going to happen either. So in the end, it's just a bit of wasted time and money by DT, but he doesn't mind. He's still in excellent position.
Although he is going to lose the Pleasure Dome race to that Scar. And Ryak has yet to do anything with patents despite being a scientist.
Yeah, he's just been kind of struggling this whole game. Back at HQ3, like just sitting around with no money, trying to get into the second glass furnace.
Let the
Not
bidding begin.
class killed at this point. Yeah, just it's been difficult for him. Might have been better just sticking in the 4 steel.
Well, he will get slant drilling, which... okay.
HQ has been
It opens up a possibility for him to slant drill off of Cat's high carbon. I'm not sure if that does anything really, but it is annoying for Cat.
Well,
HQ has been upgraded.
it was only 6k in debt, so not a bad price for slant drilling at all.
The black market is on.
Yeah, certainly could have been bid higher by anyone, although it is fair to say that on planets with diminishing resources, slant is significantly less interesting. DT actually manages to finish the buyout on that Scar taking the upgrade to HQ5 without defending himself and paying the price.
Yep. Be careful, especially when you see someone trying to do a bully maneuver.
Right.
First up, you've just got to be prepared to do that. It's very easy. Just before you upgrade to scan the cache of your opponents, be like, can I do this safely?
And yeah, that getting done might be enough. Cat is getting a space elevator up with the thinking machines and the aluminum production. That is something we're watching for. And it's finally happening. Fuel launches are pretty solid. Not the best launches available at the moment, but they are cheap and sustainable. Not something she'll need to pay attention to.
And the other thing people can do is invest their money in that Scar sub. It's a level 5 expansive
Yeah, with a VR Pleasure Dome.
Yeah, VR Pleasure Dome. Ryak's at least picking up
The black
2
market
pips
is
of it.
online.
It also helps boost your stock price, so you're a bit more defensive. It's not just a cash flow issue.
We're not surprised, just disappointed in you.
Yeah, Cat's kind of just stuck at this point,
The
though.
engineers have
There's no
advanced on
realistic
production.
shot at her buying out DT. Her
Our
goon
methods
squad's getting
continue to
blown
improve.
through. Maybe trying to get a second space elevator up now, too. She is. But that's all just going to be too little, too late.
Yeah. Especially because DT already has a stock advantage. That Scar sub is starting to put up its own space elevator.
It's a nice little spike in the aluminum price that Cat was able to take some advantage of, but still just a small thing compared to the big things that DT has.
Optimization center is ready. Time to start optimization routine successful.
Let's look at the optimizations, because sometimes when it comes to a cash flow issue, optimizations matter. There, Cat has a small lead in life support and chems.
Ryek has yet to get started. DT's only really starting to get into it now. Did no one... Okay, Cat did end up picking up liquid batteries, which is nice, but also only 2
Engineers have
tiles.
advanced our production.
Again, just not going to be a major swing factor, even with oxygen as high as it is.
Our methods continue.
Well, with food being the launch, it's still very useful.
New building is available for auction.
Although DT has his boosted greenhouse farm, so...
The food price is low enough that that's not as scary as it could be. Well, 48k for a hacker array auction. DT does not want to see that go to Cat, does not want her to have any hope of finding any way to win this
The
game.
black market is online.
Yeah, because a hacker array is a way to turn some things around. Possibly. Especially if you're already in desperation mode, might as well try something.
Price manipulations to
So-
begin shortly.
One thing that has been happening throughout all this is that Cat...
The optimization
I think
center
Cat
is
was the one that
online.
blew up that Scar's...
Planned obsolescence
Yeah.
begin.
that Scar's elevator. It's been one of the things that's been consistently putting pressure on the aluminum price, along with Ryak buying up 600 and Cat needing to repair hers. She's been the one who's been in a position to
Prepare
take
for
advantage
pending
of
market
that,
adjustments. The
but
space elevator
again,
is complete. Let's
she is
watch our
still
profits
way
climb.
off from this buy. DT getting up elevators of his own now, sensing that maybe there's not enough
Business.
money left on world for him to try to push through, just securing more income for himself.
Especially because those elevators are making nearly 50k a launch, so...
Optimization routine successful.
As far as tiles go, they are the most profitable.
We call the dirty market
One thing that
manipulation
probably makes
process.
DT feel better is that Dynamite is all the way up at 70k. He should not be expecting more Dynamite to be landing onto that Scars elevators, which should keep that income flowing in nicely.
And Ryak is putting down a space elevator of his own.
Space elevator delivery. So much money.
I don't know why he put a hologram on it, especially
Not
after
very
he started building
convincing.
it.
The black market is online.
Patent Lab is probably not a disguise that people are going to buy at this point, but at the same time, no one's really going to care. Ryak
Yeah.
is just unfortunately too far behind.
And if you're going to buy a 70k attack, you're going to throw it at your enemy, or at least your, in the case of Cat, may get to target the, that Scar sub, because it's guaranteed to be non-defended, but we're getting to the point here where the black market just doesn't have affordable options to deal with space elevators.
And DT is just 30k, 20k away from buying Cat, which will just end the game.
Yep.
Cat did eventually go into a hacker ray of her own, used it to hack down food once, but again, not
Yep.
even coming into effect before she gets bought out.
I mean, DT is just going to sell his stock. I mean, there is... He may not need to, even depending on the price here, but he can just sell his stock for the extra cash.
Mm-hmm. There's literally no way for him to lose this game. Not literally. There are ways for him to lose this
He'd have to try.
Yes. Or be very unfortunate with a disconnection or something.
Yes. So, Ryak, you hear that? You need to EMP where DT actually is in real life in the next 2 seconds. That's your way to win.
Profits rising.
Yeah, 2 seconds is about how much time he has left. 100%. I guess now it's another 5 seconds with the stock sell. Alright. Well done to DT. Taking
Another...
advantage of... Well, I guess he was even the one who was applying most of the pressure on Cat. Only 2 other attacks from Ryak.
But when they hit early, and they hit most of your tiles, and they just slow you down that much, if you just have that set of, lots of rocky road there, you're going to be in trouble.
For sure. And once you just keep getting chain targeted, it just really snowballs.
Yep. And there we go. We've got the full-on ranks there. No need for a tiebreak from us.
Always nice to see. And we can look to move on to round number 8.
Our final round here.
So, not to ruin the suspense, but DT actually can still lose this. If Cat finishes first, DT finishes last, then Cat will be ahead in score. But that is quite a set of events.
Yes, but it is still possible, and Kat is talented enough to pull that off. She can get a quick, if majority buyout on DT somehow finagles her way right, we could see that happen.
Definitely a possibility. And even without that source of suspense, you still have that Scar and Ryak looking for a win.
So the question is will DT make a if he's playing the meta game here, you would take out, if he can get ahead and take out that Scar Ryak quickly and basically guarantee himself not a last place finish. Does he, do that to guarantee the win of the tournament?
It's definitely a play that is available to him. I suspect DT will just go for the win himself.
I do too. But we will certainly see.
Would be nice to see series here for our final game, just round off the set of locations.
I don't think we saw, unless Game 4 had series.
I don't remember. It's been a whole week.
And series certainly makes you play a bit differently.
Mm-hmm. Certainly less of this off-world stuff we've been seeing. I guess not in the first game. Would you like to handle the intro for this one?
Sure. Welcome to the 8th and final game of the Aquamarine League regular division. Death Tacticus has 4 wins, Cat has 3. And it looks like DT is the favorite on the tiebreak, so can Cat take him out here on this final game in Mars of New San Francisco?
We have another power colony this time, having a lot of those today, but power does start low. There is time before that kicks in.
There's a interesting scavenger found up in the north.
Nice, decent-sized crater. Not going to be too cramped. Aluminum's a little farther away, but that's not a huge problem. See DT going for this expansive, decent iron, strong aluminum, strong water, dry ice. Not bad.
There was actually an interesting where that scar went down. Could have been a very nice elite found, given that there was high iron and high silicon right next to each other with some good water nearby. But chooses to go for robot instead.
Could have worked very well. Robot, I guess, does have the advantage of potentially being able to transition into the power play when that spikes more easily, and maybe not having to worry quite as much about this water being taken. Although there is still good water not too much farther away.
An expansive HQ has been upgraded.
And again, if you're an elite, if water really becomes that important, you've got more claims for it and certainly access to teleportation to get it. Also, you don't need to go spend a claim on aluminum, which was also farther away.
Mm-hmm. So, on HQ2, a lot of players just expanding into a bunch more steel. Ryek moving into more carbon and some water. All very standard stuff.
Ryek was the first to HQ2. Looks like
That Scar aggressively using auction tile. 32k is a fair amount to spend on this. It means that the power play won't really be an option.
But
Although he is moving into power off of it right away anyway. Just curious to me.
The black market is online.
Also, do wonder a bit about the placement. Could have been next to the quarry, just giving that a little extra adjacency, being able to manipulate that tile a bit better instead of having it as a single tile.
ooh, I just saw something fun that I hope someone does this game. I don't know if it's going to happen. Someone researches geothermal borehole, and there's right now a geotherm right next to 2 habitat modules. Throw down a pleasure dome on that spot and basically have just the free money tile.
Yeah, you could even throw down a hacker array right next door with the offices. That's less interesting, but it's an option.
It is certainly an option.
So, Kat, perhaps noticing who her opponents are this game, going with a nice early freeze onto DT's steel. That is going to slow him down a fair amount. He did found with a decent amount of debt. And yeah, he's already in B. He had to transition his aluminum tiles to steel just to keep that running.
And the Revenge Power Surge there got a bad bounce and left one of her farms online, but the Dust Storm will take care of that.
Yep. Cat producing a robust 0.14 food over her life support consumption. not going to get much done off those tiles.
Expansive
But
And
he is
right-
going to get the HQ3 first.
And right now it's time for a good power play. If someone's got it. Unfortunately,
Curve wind.
the robot is doing that in solar panels. Not the right time.
Yeah, that and the 32k auction kind of ensured that this was never going to really pay off. 2 solar panels is always going to be a bit of a hard ask
The black
in terms
market
of
is
making a
online.
power play work. So it's just that's kind of just stuck in an in-between zone where not quite getting anything from that. Ryak did claim 2 tiles on this northeastern cliff, but returned them.
Meanwhile, Kat has got her 2 running.
Ryak deciding on a geothermal plant instead.
And now Kat is making the power money.
Only 10 seconds left on this dust storm, so it won't be any obscene amount of money, but it will still be very healthy for her. Especially while DT is languishing in sea debt, not a comfortable place to be.
And those and they're still strong. Still very strong. Making 1.35 power a second.
Less than she would like to be making, but definitely still a nice amount of income. That mutiny will hurt a lot.
Yes. And whoever did it doesn't need to worry about connecting anything up. It's perfectly fine that it's all the way out there.
Mm-hmm. Although, yeah, it's perfectly fine to mutiny it. That scar is not going to see much benefit off of it. Still running a very small power surplus, even with mutiny and 2 power tiles of his own.
Well, probably not anymore now that she's upgraded and going to continue building, but, you know,
has been upgraded.
when you only have, 9k in debt,
The black
no need to worry if there's a little bit of take there as long as you have a plan to address it.
Yeah, there is one little awkward thing about this cliff. There's just only the 2 spots that she took are actually reasonably strong. Everything else is medium or worse. So expanding on that wind production will not be as clean as she might like. Well,
But she's going for a
instead looking
geothermal
at
vent,
those.
so...
Perfectly fine.
And
Took advantage of the dust storm while it was going, now finding other options.
And here's the teleportation pattern, which is very interesting because it can certainly be valuable, especially with fuel over 100 at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And Ryak claims it.
I would have been tempted to just let it go to that scar for 24k. Just, let him deal with being in D-debt. But Ryak does get decent benefit out of it. Pretty good, actually.
Especially because Ryak is also in a crater.
A robotics HQ
It allows him to do some fun things like disconnect his buildings by a tile to avoid the power surges.
Right, and also his water situation is a bit awkward. That scar did insist on muscling in on that medium water in the cluster Ryak first went for, so he ended up splitting into 2 highs. Having teleportation allows Ryak to just claim a bunch more water tiles and transition out of them as needed.
Yep. Especially if he needs to claim those 2 lows right by the high by his base. They're not permanently stuck that way. You can put nice
The black market is online.
glass or chems there if the need arises.
So we have a bunch of patent labs down. Interestingly enough, it's Cat that's pushing Vitangel instruments early this game and not that scar.
has been upgraded.
Well, Death Tacticus would drop down into D-debt for a second there. Back in C, that Scars in C.
Definitely a reasonable investment. Interesting to see it as a first patent choice, not something that is commonly done.
It probably would have been better to get something like nanotech, just considering the price of steel and glass.
Steel price has definitely been staying stubbornly high most of the game.
Been upgraded.
And nanotech also potentially useful for moving in and out of power. Cat's power situation is a bit awkward at the moment. With
Yep, and she's about to lose a patent race on the energy vault there.
patent race on energy vault. Things you don't hear every day.
Although, considering how much water is possible on this map, cold fusion. Sometimes it doesn't get enough love. I've looked back on a few games, especially when ones where I've gotten it off a bid, and I was like, wow, that was actually really good. I didn't realize how much I wanted that.
Fusion can be a bit game changing if you have access to the water, and this game multiple players do. DT definitely does, Cat definitely does, Bryke definitely can. Only that Scar is in a bit more of an awkward situation with water.
But Cat does win the bid for geothermal borehole, which is nice, because that now means her optimization center that she is building will not consume any power.
Yeah, just a nice little boost. Not sure if she was planning that location with that in mind, or if it just happened to be that way, but either way, very nice.
Yeah. Actually, both of her optimization centers. So that is turning out to be 2.4 power that she has saved. Maybe she had that idea in mind, she just didn't know she was going to win it that way.
Yeah, when both our optimization centers are positioned like that, that's what I have to suspect. So, bet she's real happy to get it for 12k only.
And she also gets virtual reality, given her pleasure dome is now completely surrounded. That is going to be a very nice one. She's got tons of cash.
And also still just very aware of who her opponent is, raining down net viruses on DT, making sure there's nothing going on there that she needs to worry about. I'm pretty sure we'll start seeing some stock aggression there before too long as well.
And that Scar looks like he's going to win the nanotech patent, which is a good one. And then Cat is getting carbon scrubbing, which again will save claims.
Looks like Cat decides to go after Ryak instead. Not going to get the buy. Actually, is going to get the buy done with DT's help there. It is an interesting choice by DT. I guess it does the metagame. It does seal in his not last place thing.
Well, if he had no choice but to, if he's realizing he's not going to get the win in the in this game because he got a little far behind, it may just be worthwhile to go for the metagame, do what you can.
It's a very interesting decision in his position because he is significantly behind, very far behind realistically. So that might have been his best option in terms of metagame. In terms of winning this game, it sets him well behind Cat. Cat wouldn't have finished the buy on her own, I don't think. So, yeah, just kind of locks in her lead there. 8k superconductor auction is nice for DT. Even through the dust storm, he now has 2 normal solar panels.
Cat throwing a mutiny down on DT's pleasure dome.
That might take away enough income from DT for Cat to finish this majority buy. Looks like it will. And from there, that Scar just doesn't have anything to really compete with 2 subs. That's Scarred some cute little things with robot adjacency, but all these remote claims just makes for slow production, inflexible, and he missed out on teleportation.
And Cat is an expansive in and of herself, so she should win against a robot when it comes to late game. And with a scavenger and another expansive sub decently owned, she's just going to have that advantage. So just a matter of how long that Scar drags it out.
Mm-hmm. And even without all that, Cat has a significant lead in optimizations. Not a ton of optimizations, but enough of them, and in important markets. So even if they were on an even footing, she'd just be solidly ahead there.
And she's running 2 to that Scar's 1. Patent-wise, that Scar's got Energy Vault, Water Engine, Nanotech, and Cold Fusion, which makes him able to do a lot of things with water. But
Unfortunately, it's not have quite enough water.
Yeah, but geothermal, bullhorn, virtual reality, carbon scrubbing, not to mention financial instruments, which fed her a bit during the game, are going to be better. And her Ryak sub owns thinking machines and teleportation.
A new claim is available for option.
So,
Yeah. Cat is going to move into an off-world market, just kind of making sure she has income. Off-worlds are decent. 32k. Food price should be on its way down, so at 550 a pop, that should just get better and better. Yeah. Cruise control.
well, here's a interesting thought. That Scar has bought a tile right next to the secret off-world that Cat is building, and he is building a patent lab disguised as a hacker array.
I think it's the other way around.
No, it says a patent lab under construction, visible building, hacker array.
It says the opposite for me.
Okay, so maybe it's a hacker array. Yeah, okay, yeah, looking on there, it's actually a hacker array.
Looks like he's surplusing electronics. That's not really a high impact play.
If he's
maybe just looking to get into off worlds of his own, but
yeah.
Yeah, I'm just not seeing it.
Yeah. It's as long as Cat plays it conservatively from here on out. And magnetic storms exist. And since that Scar is trying to bring in high valuable things like fuel, oxygen, chems.
Yep, just everything.
Remember, you get a pair of magnetic storms for each purchase, so you can just blow up stuff in the air and just have fun with it.
Yeah, definitely kind of highlighting the downside of going robot here over the elite you were talking about earlier. Could have guaranteed the teleportation. Didn't have to go for all this silly robot adjacency. Could have made something work there with all the time he was given this game. But I suppose early game also would have been more of a struggle. Couldn't have afforded to do like the 32k auction.
Well, you wouldn't have needed to done that. You would have just gotten the extra claims. Also, doing an early auction there didn't work out for him anyway. I didn't think it was a particularly strong move.
Right.
If you're going to do a power robot, what you do is you go down last, you put down a bunch of silicon mines, and then you just replace them with solar panels.
Yeah. I don't think that was a reasonable option this game just because power started low. So, by the time you get rolling off of that, it'll be way too late.
Yeah, no, because power started low definitely wasn't an option. There has to be a specific set of circumstances you can do that under.
Oh, we have to do tiebreak between DT and Ryak, and that kind of decides who wins this. Cat wins if we decide DT is fourth. It goes to another tiebreaker if we decide DT is third. Realistically, I think DT was more. Well, no, he was well behind most of the game. I don't like this decision.
Yeah. Trying to think about founding wise, who do you think had the better found?
That's a good question. I don't feel like I have a strong preference for either found. They're both solid. DT's, I guess, might have been a bit better, but he also dropped first. Okay, so DT is saying that even if we give him third, Cat would win on a time tiebreaker. So that lightens the pressure on us a bit.
So it doesn't matter what we pick for tournament wise.
Yeah. Like DT was solidly behind most of this game, but there's a part of that was also just Cat was targeting him.
And they both got majority bought out, didn't they?
Yes.
They both lost to a majority buy.
I think one thing. I think I would go with Ryak winning the tiebreaker. Ryak wouldn't have gotten majority bought if DT didn't join in the majority buy. So.
And he played it fairly well. He went and got that teleportation, which I think was useful for him. Until he got bought out, he was playing solidly.
Yeah. Despite some little awkward issues that he faced with Scar contesting his water and other things. He put himself in a position to be competitive. Can I show Cat's found, please? This is Cat's found. My Z key isn't working because I have chat open. Yeah, Cat largely skipped. Like, she picked up the high iron right away. So it was slightly worse than DT's because the iron was slightly farther away, but she made it work better early. Especially with the freeze onto DT steel.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I think it is Cat, That Scar, Ryak, DT.
Yep, sounds fair to me.
Yep.
Yeah,
and
DT probably overpaid for his found.
And yeah, this was definitely Cat just came back and dominated this game. But yes, this has been a very exciting tournament.
Yeah, DT coming back in to take a lead, and Cat finding a way to close things out at the end.
Yeah. Well, all right. This has been a good tournament. And does DT have the final report of Cat winning the Aquamarine tournament? Is that what I understand it to be?
I would like confirmation on that too. But in the meantime, thanks for joining me on the cast. Or thanks for, I don't know, hosting them even.
And if people want to see later and want to do something else, I will have these put up on my YouTube for archiving purposes, at least my perspective, not Blues' perspective, of course. But
right. I'll get around to putting my stuff up eventually. Still have to do yesterday's newcomer stuff as well.
How did that go?
technical difficulties were mercifully somewhat limited, and the final results ended up being pretty close. Few players with 3 wins apiece.
Very nice. Well, I guess thank you all for joining us.